Welcome to the London School of English. Today we will share 10 important tips for getting a high score in your IELTS reading test. And this would include strategies on answering true, false, not given questions in your IELTS exam. You will also learn frequent problems that test takers often have and how to overcome them. I'm delighted to introduce two of my colleagues who will share their advice today. And with us here, we have our expert English language trainer, Emma Palmieri, who will cover the main part of the video. Hi, Emma.
Hi.
And we also have my colleague Perrine Chor from the sales team who advises clients on IELTS preparation training. So,
Hi, Emma.
hi, Perrine. So welcome both. And before we start, Perrine, could you tell us more about how we can help our viewers to prepare for their IELTS exam?
Sure, Olga. So we are offering IELTS preparation in two different formats, and hopefully one of them would work for you to support your work in your exam preparations. The first one is IELTS virtual groups, and it is a virtual class delivered by one of our experienced trainers online. It is a part-time course with 15 hours per week, and you will be studying in a small group with other participants of the same level. You can join the course any Monday, and you will have 3 hours of the course per day from Monday to Friday. You can also choose between 2 time slots, which should hopefully allow you to join us wherever you are in the world right now. The IELTS virtual group course is the ideal solution for you to study with one of our expert trainers, such as Emma, and also meet participants from around the world without the need to travel to London. Now, if you are planning to come to the UK, or if you're already based in London, then that's even better. You can come and join our IELTS preparation course in centre. You'll be studying in our beautiful school located in West London, and here is Mandy at reception, and you will be with other international students as well. Our face-to-face IELTS course is a full-time program with 24 hours of training per week, Monday to Friday. The IELTS exam course in London offers sessions of either 4 or 8 weeks and fixed start dates all year round. We also create groups of learners of the same level, so you can study in the same small group for the duration of your IELTS course.
Thank you very much, Perrine. And now what we'll do is we'll focus on the strategies which will help you to prepare for your IELTS reading test. And we will have a question and answer at the end. So please share your questions and comments in the live chat next to the video. And now, Emma, over to you for the main part of the session.
Okay, great. Thanks, Olga. Thanks, Perrine. It's really good to see you all, guys. So here are my top 10 tips for getting the maximum score you can in the reading part of the IELTS exam, okay? Now I'm going to start with number 10, not surprisingly, read more, okay? It is the reading paper. Reading is a useful skill to have for the reading paper, but it's not only for that, it's also for vocabulary. Those of you that are familiar with this paper, and indeed the IELTS exam, know that vocabulary is key. So many of the questions are based on knowing synonyms. So for example, in one section, it might be light, and in the question, it is fair. Okay, light and fair are synonyms. So it's like knowing vocabulary really well that's going to help you in this paper, and reading is one of the most useful ways to do that. And when you're reading, you're seeing these words in context, you're knowing how they're used, you're knowing their sort of nuances and meanings. So it really is not only for the skill, but for vocabulary and indeed the entire paper, you're going to be doing this. So how to read more? It sounds easy, but you need to find a variety of texts, okay? Maybe you look online, maybe you look at books and magazines, newspapers. It doesn't sort of matter exactly what, but you need a variety. and look at different topics. Okay, so if you usually read for celebrity gossip, I don't know, or maybe more serious things for politics, you need to think, okay, broader than this. Maybe think about the natural environment's a very common IELTS topic, or you might think about social problems. That's again something that comes up quite frequently. So think about different topics. Also, try to find something which you find interesting. I say find something outside your normal comfort zone maybe, but still interesting. If it's not interesting, it's not always possible, try to be realistic, break it up. So don't think, I'm going to read this 5,000 word article about politics if you really don't like politics. Think, I'm going to read like sort of 500 words and then have a break, okay? Or 500 words today, 500 words tomorrow. So be quite realistic about what you can achieve. If you find it interesting, it's going to be more motivating. You're more likely to keep with it. But if it's not possible, try to break it down into chunks and reward yourself if you can, like go out for a bar of chocolate or whatever you need to do to reward yourself to keep yourself going there. As I said, it's really important to do it regularly. So if you're finding it hard to do it regularly, make it into a habit. So you might want to fix a certain time for reading. Maybe as you're going into work, maybe you can read like sort of a few pages, or if you're sort of on a Saturday morning or something like that. But if it's a fixed time, you're much more likely to do it regularly. Also, as I said before, if it's quite a realistic quantity. So don't say, so many students say to me, oh, Emma, I bought this novel. It's a really great novel. I'm going to read it. And then I ask a couple of weeks later, so have you read it? No, I haven't read it. Because it's a huge novel and I've never had the time to sit down and read a huge novel. So it's much more realistic maybe to break it up. I will read 3 pages every day or something like that. Try to limit yourself and you're much more likely to achieve your goals. Finally, and maybe most importantly, as you're reading, this stage, you're reading for pleasure, for skills, to try to improve your reading and see words in context. You're not reading to learn new vocabulary, only that. So don't look up every single new word, because otherwise you won't read. You will just look up new words, which might be a useful vocabulary exercise, but which is not a useful reading exercise. So I would say do not look up new words. Read, say, 3 pages, and then go back at it. And then if you want to focus on vocabulary, choose 5 new words, not too many, and then look at them in more detail, look them up in the dictionary or whatever you try to do. But try to read without looking up new words. Because when you come to the IELTS exam, you won't have a dictionary, you won't be able to look up those words. You need to learn how to read for meaning, to read around words you don't know. And there will always be words you don't know in the IELTS exam, okay? Okay, next point, number 9, familiarize yourself with the exam. Now, this may surprise you, but even native speakers like myself, like the Queen, like other native speakers you might know, don't get the top score in IELTS, okay? So it's not a test of purely how good your English is. You also need to know how the exam works. This is true of most exams, and it's very true of IELTS, okay? This is why lots of students take IELTS courses, big surprise, so that they have a better chance of getting their target score. The reading paper in particular has the greatest variety of questions. I think it's like 9 or 10. Some of them are a bit similar, but roughly that. And you need to spend time knowing what they are and how you need to answer them and practicing different strategies for answering them, okay? There are past papers published by Cambridge and by some other websites. I'll set links at the end. And it's worth looking at them, going through them, seeing how the questions work. Some of them are multiple choice, some of them are matching, some of them are gap fill, finding out what you might want to do first, what you might want to do second, in what order the answers come in, all those kinds of things. And remember, you don't have as much time as you'd like to do this. It is under time conditions, 1 hour, okay? So it's not very much time. Okay, so I would recommend that you see as much as you can beforehand, see how the questions work, see which ones you find easier, see which ones you find more difficult. Obviously, practice the ones you find more difficult more. And after you've done that, analyze your mistakes. So you don't just say, oh, I got 10 right, I got 5 wrong. Okay, but why did you get those 5 wrong? Okay, it's not going to help you. You take it again, you get another 10 right, 5 wrong. You want to reduce the number you get wrong, increase the number you get right. And you only do that by understanding why you're making mistakes. When you understand why, you can do things to avoid making those same mistakes again. Okay, so maybe you need to learn more vocabulary, as I said, huge part, knowing synonyms. Maybe you need to increase your vocabulary. Maybe it's a case of misunderstanding exactly what the question wants. Okay, so having a look at that. The classic true, false, not given. many students struggle with these types of questions. I think getting a feel of what constitutes a false answer, how much information it needs to be actually there and false, and how much it is like sort of actually not there and therefore not given. Okay, it's practice getting a feeling for that really gives you the best chance of answering correctly. Just practice knowing what's expected of you is the best way to know how to answer them, and in the exam will make you feel more comfortable, more confident, and therefore more likely to perform well. Okay, we come to number 8. You know what the questions are. You know how to answer them. That's one thing. As I said before, you only have 1 hour, okay? Many students say to me, oh, Emma, I did the practice paper. That was fine. Okay, I did well. Okay, great. How long did you spend doing it at home? Oh, about 5 hours. Well, great. You're not going to have 5 hours in the exam. You're going to have 1 hour. And that's, a completely different thing. So here I think it's important to distinguish 2 ways to read. Okay. First of all, you need to be able to read quickly, to scan the text, we sometimes call it scanning, to find where the information is in the text that we need to answer the question, okay? There are, say, 13, 14 questions for each text. You do not have time to read the text 13 or 14 times looking for the question. Now, usually the questions, depends on the type of question, but usually in the same order as the text. But even then, you don't have time to read it that many times. You need to be able to scan the text and going, I think the answer is in this paragraph, okay? So that's the first way of reading you need to be able to do, to scan a text well to find the words, okay? Secondly, you need to be able to read accurately in order to find out what the answer is to the question, okay? This is a danger because many students, they say, oh, I can find where the answer is, it's here. And oh, I think the answer is it's that fruit bats love eating grapes. Yes, grapes is there. Yes, grapes. That's the right answer. And no, you need to read. Once you've found where the answer is, you need to read slowly, carefully, and accurately to analyze what the correct answer is to the question, okay? So how to do this, okay, these 2 different things. I would recommend, first of all, timing yourself reading very quickly before scanning. So you find a text, an article, and you read it very quickly looking for keywords. If you spend 6 minutes reading one article, then if you can read it accurately and then summarize what it's about after 6 minutes, then fabulous, that's great. Then go back and do it again and see if you can reduce the time you're doing that, okay? So you're getting faster at reading it. And as I said as well, try to see if you can identify certain words, certain information. Synonyms will help with that, okay? For reading for accuracy, see if you can summarize, because this is very often a question in IELTS, summarize the meaning of the text, okay? And again, time yourself. So you read a paragraph and then try to think, okay, how are you going to summarize that in 1 sentence? See how long it takes you to do that, say maybe 4 minutes. And then, okay, read another paragraph, try to summarize it and see if you can do it in 3 minutes. So in each case, you're trying to practice a certain reading skill, see how long it takes you to do it, and then try to reduce the times it takes you to do that, okay? Again, it's just practice of doing this. Lots of students don't particularly like reading, it takes them a long time, they find it difficult, maybe not very interesting, and therefore they avoid it, and that sort of perpetuates the problem. It's almost like if you find it really difficult, you probably need to do it more. Okay, so try to do it more, practice it more, try to time yourself as much as possible. Sometimes when you're reading for accuracy, when you've got very, very long sentences, it's very easy to get lost. Okay, so again, and one way to practice this is subject, verb, object. Okay, I try to sometimes underline them or maybe highlight them in different colors. Okay, so I think we've got an example here written out for you. So this is taken from a practice paper. Recent therapeutic developments is subject. And then for humans such as artificial light machines and melatonin filtration, we can ignore for now. We focus on the verb, can reset. And then the object, our circadian rhythms. So, okay, I can just focus on recent therapeutic developments. So like new therapies can reset our circadian rhythms. Okay, fine. That's my first thing. And then and then next subject, verb, object, our bodies can tell the difference. So our body subject can tell the difference. Okay, our bodies know the difference. And okay, another subject, verb, health suffers when we breach these natural rhythms for extended periods of time. Okay, so first focus on subject, verb, object. So you can understand, okay, the overall meaning of this sentence. It's a very long sentence. And then focus on those bits I've left in black. Okay, then, okay, now I can have this additional information. Now I know the core of the sentence. I can add this information and I understand the whole sentence. Okay, now the first few times you're doing this, it's going to take you a while. I'm not denying that, it will take you a while. But then again, practice, you do it more and more often, it will become quicker. Subject, verb, object, this is the main idea. Now I can add the rest of it. Okay, now I understand what this is trying to tell me. Okay, so I think that's a really good strategy you can have for understanding accurately what the key part of the text is that's going to tell you the answer. Okay, and yeah. Okay, so it will help you focus on the main meaning, and then when you go back to the other words, overall, you will understand what the author is trying to say. Okay, now we come to number 7. Number 7, I've mentioned it before many times. I'll mention it again. Timing is everything. You only have 60 minutes to do the reading paper, and actually that includes time to transfer the answers to the answer sheet. Okay, remember you've got the question paper with the questions on it and the answer sheet where, not surprisingly, you have to write the answers. Okay, some students prefer to answer questions directly on the answer sheet as they're going through. Other students prefer to write on the question paper as they go through and then transfer all their answers onto the answer sheet at the end. If you do decide to do it that way, leave time to do this, unlike some of my students who don't and fail simply because they've just run out of time to copy down their answers. Don't do that, okay? Leave time to transfer your answers at the end if you do it that way. And as you're transferring your answers or as you're writing on the answer sheet, do make sure that you're doing it correctly, because it's very easy if you're filling in A, B, C, A, D, A, E to, oh, you've missed a line and then you've transferred all of them wrongly, not because you've understood the question wrongly or any mistakes you've made, simply because you haven't written it down correctly on the answer sheet. So do pay attention to that stage and don't leave it to the last minute, stress, and then do it wrong. Okay, so you've got 3 texts, as we said, 3 texts, 60 minutes. So that is slightly less because of transfer time, 20 minutes each, okay? Stick to these times, 20 minutes, slightly less, 18, 20 minutes each, okay? It is very tempting when you see the first text to go, oh, this is amazing, like this reading. Oh, and oh, this question, oh, I'm not so sure. Or maybe it's this. Maybe it's, I don't know. Let's go back and read it again. And before you know it, you spent 30 minutes answering the first 5 questions. Okay? And that means you've got 35 questions to answer in 30 minutes. Okay, so don't do that. Be very strict with your time. 20 minutes to do the first one, and then be really strict with yourself. Turn over the page. Next 20 minutes, next text. Okay? You are much more likely to lose points by missing out things at the end than you are to gain points because you did spent loads of extra time at the first one. Okay, so maybe if you spend 30 minutes on a couple of questions, you get 1 extra right that otherwise you wouldn't otherwise have done. But at the end of the paper, you probably lose 10 points because you just don't have time to have a look at that section. So do make sure that you divide your time equally between those texts, okay? And my next point, I will come back to this later, but always answer the question, okay? So even if you have no idea if the answer is A, B, or C, or whatever, just make an intelligent guess, okay? And move on, okay? Move on and just let it go, as it were. Let it go, move on, next text. Okay, next point, number 6, hugely important. I always recommend that my students, whenever they come to the course, they have a variety of colours of pen. Yes, I practice what I preach. You see here, I have a green pen. Here, I have a pink pen. Here, I have a sort of orangey colour pen. Okay, always have different colour pens because underlining, highlighting information is so important when you come to the exam paper. I'm imagining, see a highlighter even on a slide. I'm imagining when you come to do the exam, it'll be quite a stressful experience. You know, no matter what you do, it's usually quite a stressful experience taking an exam, right? So it's very easy to miss information that normally you wouldn't miss, but because you're feeling stressed, but maybe you're worried about the time or whatever else, you do miss it. So when you look at your questions, especially the questions, when you look at the instructions, to highlight the key words, okay? It's very easy when you're looking at 1,000 words written on the page in the reading paper to just miss a couple. Make sure that if you do miss a couple, it's not an important word, okay? So underline your keywords. Little words like not, it's easy to miss, but very important. Also words like always, most, the majority. Often these ones you need to pay very close attention to, these words. Underline them, okay? Think of synonyms. So maybe in the question it's most, and maybe in the reading text it's the majority of, okay? So that's what you're looking for to find, okay? So underline those words and then you're less likely to miss them, okay? Also, just to make it super clear, if it's a question where where the answer is one of the words in a text, and some of those question forms you need to actually copy down the word from the text, underline that word in that text and make extra sure you have spelt it correctly because you need to do correct spelling, okay? And it's in front of you, the word, you should be able to, you're just copying it out, but again, under stress, under pressure, it's very easy to miswrite it, okay? So just, again, underline it, highlight it to make sure that you do spell it correctly. Okay, that brings me nicely to my next point, number 5, read for the question, okay? I've mentioned this before. In the exam, the text is there to help you answer the question, okay? Now, this might seem a slightly backwards way to look at it, but again, it's because of the time pressure. In an ideal world, you would have lots of time to read the article, really enjoy it, maybe think about it for some time, and then to look at the questions. This is not that time. This is an exam. You have to focus on how the text is going to help you answer the question, because only if you answer the question, you get the points that you need to get the score you need for IELTS, okay? The question is your priority, not the text. As I said, Read the question very carefully. Make sure you understand the question. Underline the words in the question, as I said before, that you need, the key words that you need not to miss. Then, as I said before in reading skills, scan back at the text and find what part of the text it is referring to and answer it. Okay? If it is a multiple choice question, do this before you look at the multiple choice answers. Okay? So, for example, if the question is something like, what point is the author making about the fruit bat's nesting patterns or something like that? You often have these kind of rather obscure questions in IELTS. Okay, look at that section in the text. Okay, look back at the text, look at fruit bat, nesting patterns, look at words like that in the text so you know where it is. And then read that part of the text and think, okay, what is this telling me about the nesting patterns of the fruit bat? It's telling me that the fruit bat always nests with the same partner. Okay, maybe. That's what it's telling me in the text, okay? It's, it could be different times, but it's always with the same partner, okay? So then I look back at the multiple choice answers I have for that question, and it says A, the fruit bat always nests in the evening, or B, the fruit bat makes nests from different materials, and C, the fruit bat always I don't know, has a similar companion or something. It's going to be a synonym. And then you think, okay, it's same partner, similar companion, therefore that's going to be my answer, okay? If you read through the multiple choice before you look at the text, then it can become quite confusing, okay? Because you're sort of thinking, okay, what about A? What's it saying about, it can be confusing. So look for that first. Afterwards, once you think it's probably C, then if you want to, you can think, okay, A. Now, do you think it could be A? No, I don't think it is because, okay. If you have time, then you can do that and double check, okay? But if you don't have time, it's better to read the question first, then the text, get the answer from the text, then cross-reference it with the multiple choice. Okay, now there are so many points I could say about IELTS and reading. So many different strategies. Teachers themselves argue about what is the best way to teach reading. I think one key piece of advice is know yourself. As Socrates said all that time ago, it's a key piece of wisdom, I think, in life as well as the IELTS paper. So, know yourself. What kind of student are you? What kind of reader are you? Do you enjoy reading? Do you read a lot? Do you find it really difficult? Is it something you avoid? Do you do it in your own language? Know yourself. Many teachers recommend quickly reading the text before looking at the questions. You call this a skimming method. Okay, so you read it very quickly, 2 minutes, you read the text before, and then you look at the questions. This is because having read the text first, you will then be able to find the relevant passages to answer the question more quickly because you've read through it already once. So when you look at the question, you think, oh, I read that in the third paragraph. Okay, so you can do it more quickly. However, key to this strategy is that you've got to be able to skim read really quickly. You can only spend you can't spend a long time doing the skim reading, otherwise you don't have time to answer the questions, okay? So know yourself. If you can do this, if you can read really quickly, to read it really quickly before looking at the questions, do it, absolutely. That's an excellent way to do it. However, if you think that you won't be able to read it that quickly, if you think it will take you more time, then I would recommend you look at the questions first, okay? I find with many of my students, they spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes, sometimes more, okay, trying to skim read the text before they look at the questions. Of course, then they run short of time. So as I explained before, okay, when familiarizing yourself with the exam, see what method works for you and stick to it. Okay, so if it works better for you to read the text first and then look at the questions, okay, great, do it that way and practice it that way. If you find that you're taking far too long to read the text to begin with, then focus on the questions first, okay? This maxim, know yourself, is also good to minimize your potential weaknesses in every area of the exam, okay? So if you know yourself, you read too quickly and you make lots of careless errors, then you know that of yourself. You take more time to slow down, you make a more conscious effort to underline the key words so you don't miss them, so you're not careless, okay? If you're the sort of person you tend to feel insecure when you don't know a word and look everything up because, you know, you feel like sort of, you know, if you don't understand every single word, then you're going to make a mistake. Force yourself, I know it's not easy, but force yourself to read a text without looking up the unknown words, okay? Because you're not going to be able to do that in the exam. So in this way, when you know yourself better, you can take steps to reduce the mistakes that you're likely to make and therefore avoid your usual usual errors. Okay, Perrine, I think you had a point here, didn't you?
Yes, Emma. Actually, this really comes from my personal experience when doing mock exams and being, as you said, like very stressed about the reading part. So my suggestion sounds maybe a little bit unusual, but as you said earlier, when you don't like reading, you don't read that much, and you should probably read more. And again, it's about knowing yourself. So I feel that sometimes when it's difficult to focus on reading, especially when you're reading something that you don't particularly like or something that you're not familiar with, or just because you're not very good at focusing on reading, I find it very useful to try and combine the different skills. So, for example, I remember I spoke to one of my French students, and she said that she got a subscription from an audiobook platform, and she found that very enjoyable for listening practice. And she said, like, she's really struggling with reading. What I suggested was something that I did myself, was why don't you then read the book with the audiobook, because then maybe it's going to help you focus better when you're going to be reading. And I did it as well with podcasts, because sometimes you can find the transcripts online. And I know that on the day of the exam, you won't have like a combination of both, obviously. But I feel that when you're doing, or when you're reading a foreign language, you can't really hear the words. It sounds a little bit strange, but as you get used to hearing English at the same time as you're reading a text, then the day you have to do the reading practice only, then you can hear yourself, or you can hear a voice as you're reading, and it really helps retain the information. So I guess that it can't hurt to go off the beaten tracks and find a creative way of practicing. But I felt that it could really be useful, to do it that way.
Yeah, it's a really good point. It could really help your listening as well, I think, as well.
Yes.
Some people don't catch words, and if they see them written down. So obviously you don't have that in the exam, but it could be a way into it. So begin by doing it that way, and then it's less scary, and then you can get more practice in.
Yeah, hopefully. It can't hurt to try.
It can't hurt to try, exactly. Okay, well, thank you very much for that, Porine. Excellent advice. Okay, guys, now we're on the top 3. Can you believe it? We're near the end already. Okay, so it sounds obvious, but always check after you think you have your answer that it's in the text, okay? So as I said, read the question, make sure, go back to the text. Sometimes, because you've read it several times already, the text, you read the question and you think, oh, of course, the answer is cats. I've read this before. You might be correct, but always go back and check in the text, okay? Because you might have misunderstood something, or maybe sometimes Cambridge do this, that they're trying to trick you by putting something which sounds like it's the right answer, but it's not, okay? So make sure, always check back with the text, okay? I think this is particularly true for true false, not given, or yes, no, not given. Always go back to the text. If there is information about that question, then it's going to be given. So it's not given. It's going to be true or false, or yes or no, but then you need to work out if it's true or false, or yes or no. And then if you think that that information isn't there, just double, triple check that the information isn't there. Sometimes Cambridge does try to trick you a little bit. Sometimes they say something which it seems to be obviously true. Again, sometimes with true, false, not given. So they say something like, obviously true, like Einstein is clever. Okay, when we all know yes is, of course, yes, true. Einstein is clever. But it's not what is in our heads. It's what's in the text. Okay, so we might think, oh, yes, true. But go back to the text, see if you can find where it is written, Einstein is intelligent, or something like that. And then you need to decide, if they're therefore, yes, it says that is true, or whether it just says something like Einstein did well at school, or Einstein enjoyed school very much. In that case, it's much more likely to be a not given. Well, because you enjoyed school doesn't necessarily mean that you were clever. Okay, so remember my parting point on this, that the answer is in the text, not in your head. Look at the text, see if it's there, and as I said, after you've done it for a little bit, let it go. You can overthink this. You can spend a long time questioning yourself. Just look, see if it's in the text, look carefully, accurately, and then move on. You don't have time to spend too long on it, and you can make a mistake, I think, sometimes by overthinking it. Just look, make a decision, let it go. Okay, now we come to number two. My number two, big one, answer. Answer the question, okay? You don't lose points by answering incorrectly, okay? Always put an answer to the question, even if it's just a guess. And try to make it an intelligent guess, but you may be right and you don't lose anything. I would say, if you don't really know, look, make an intelligent guess, and in a perfect world, you'll have time at the end of the exam. If you have time at the end of the exam, you can then go back and have a look at it, okay? So maybe circle it on your question paper so you know to have a question, look at it again. Sometimes after you've had a bit of a break, you've looked at something else, and then you come back to it afterwards, it's like, oh yes, this is the right answer, okay? Or, oh, I think it's this one, okay? I think that's a much better way to do it than sometimes students leave a blank space and then they continue on, and then it comes to like, so you've got 1 minute left and then they just don't know quite what to do, okay? Just try to give the best possible answer you can. You're not going to be right for all of them. You don't need to be right for all of them. Even for a level 9, you don't need to get 100%, okay? So just put an answer, give the best possible answer you can, and you may be right. Finally, my last point, number one tip, and maybe the most difficult one of all to follow, is relax. Okay? Take deep breaths and try to chill. Your worst enemy, probably, but I refer you back to point 4, know yourself, is stress. If you're stressed, it's a lot harder to take in information and to process it, which is what you need to do in this exam. If you're stressed, it's a lot easier to miss the obvious and misread the question and make stupid mistakes. So take deep breaths, stick to the times, as I said, and accept you don't need 100% to get the score you need. There will always be words you don't know, and very probably true, false, not given. It'll be virtually impossible to answer, okay? Such is life, okay? But as I said before, even for a 9, you can make a mistake. So just move on, okay? So that is the end of my advice, okay? There are lots more things I can say. I hope I can now answer some of your questions that you have for me. And Olga, do you have anything you would like to ask me as well?
Thank you very much, Emma, for this very useful advice on preparing for IELTS reading test, and also Perrine for coming up with one of the suggestions as well. We have, I can see that some of our viewers are actually preparing for their IELTS, and we've got, I think Hanadi mentioned that at the moment he's preparing for the IELTS, and then he's planning to take it next year in 2021. So that's a great New Year's resolution. So please do share your questions. For example, if you're preparing for IELTS right now, if there are some problems that something is unclear that you would like to clarify, we'll be very happy to answer your questions. And meanwhile, Emma and Perrine, so for those of our viewers who are preparing and training for their IELTS exam, what would you say are pros and cons in preparing for IELTS in a class rather than preparing by themselves?
I would say that obviously you can take, as I said, on the Cambridge websites and on a couple of other ones. I think we have links at the end. But there are test papers, so you can practice taking tests yourself. There are lots of exercises that you'll be able to find online. But you get a score at the end, so you might say, oh, great, I got 20 out of 40. But you don't make any progress unless you understand why you made 20 mistakes, why you made those mistakes, because only once you know why you've made those mistakes can you think of strategies to put them right. So as I said before, if you make those mistakes because the vocabulary is the issue, you don't understand those synonyms, okay, then you need to look at more vocabulary work. As I said, reading itself is an excellent way to increase your vocabulary. But I mean, maybe there are other exercises you could do. Maybe there's a particular area of vocabulary you could work on. Or maybe it's a case that you misinterpret the question. So you don't quite understand what it is that you have to do, or that your timing's off, or it could be 1,001 things. But I think a course helps you understand why you're making those mistakes and helps you stop making those mistakes and therefore improve your performance.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree with you, Emma. I think the most difficult part when you're doing it by yourself is to stay focused, remain motivated. And sometimes you're just very good at something. You can think, oh, I'm very good at listening. My English level is amazing. I've lived in London for so many years. I'm going to do very well at the exam. And actually, it's not really about how good you are at English, but how good you are at taking the exam. It really boils down to that. And in my experience, I've had people who have lived in the UK for quite a long time, but they were really struggling with at least one skill. They maybe were very good at listening and speaking, but then they were really not that good at writing, or maybe they were very used at speaking with people, at writing, but then when it came to reading, because they really don't like it, then they were really bad at it. And finding the right way, the right technique to focus on the skill that you really need practice on. And as you said, Emma, it's just about like having a trainer, someone who's expert at the exam, say, oh, that's why you have been doing this wrong all that time, because you were not focusing on the right thing. Maybe you were not planning the time that you had to do the test properly. So maybe you had all the questions right for the first text, but you didn't allow yourself enough time to do the rest. So that's a shame, because you do have the skills, but applying it to the exam really takes someone else's expertise or experience to really help and push you further, I guess.
Absolutely,
Great. Thank you, Perrine. And I know that you've got a couple of stories from clients who actually took IELTS training with us. Could you share them?
Yeah, sure. I think we had a quote from one of our former participants who took the IELTS exam, Michelle from Brazil. She said, having nightmares with IELTS, your wish come true. Check the London School of English, your savior. Well, that's very nice of her. She said, I've been having some experiences with private IELTS tutors in different IELTS courses, but none of them gave me the exact guidance as I needed during my nearly 3 years of studies. So I do highly recommend to anyone who really wishes to master IELTS and achieve your goals in English life. That is very, very nice from Michelle. And again, I've had this coming from London-based student who was from Iran. And again, fantastic, like very high level of English, fantastic speaking skills, very good listening skills, but she was really struggling with reading and writing because those were the skills that she was not practicing at all. And she said, I did well at the exam, but those I'm really missing the points. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And I asked her, have you been practicing, like, have you been preparing by yourself? And she said, yes. And I said, well, the thing is, if you go to a group course, it's really great. The 2 group courses I was mentioning at the beginning of the live stream, either the virtual or the face-to-face, they can work pretty well, but you won't be focusing on the areas of improvement that you really need. And actually, it will save you time and it will save you money if you just focus on those skills that you need. And I recommended a private tutor, and she was not very much convinced. I told her, just give it a try. I think it's going to make a huge difference in terms of working on the exam and practicing. And when I caught up with her during the week, and at the end, she felt, wow, that's really making a difference. Now I see why I haven't been thinking about the exam the way I needed to, how to, focus my energy on practicing the exam test as itself. So reading the questions and finding a way to, succeed at the exam, and not just reading, as you said, Emma, just for the pleasure of reading, because then you can get, you can, oh, that's very
unfortunately it's not.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, oh, that's very nice. But then when you need to focus on the day, you really need to have someone who's experienced that at the exam to support you. And that was really nice to hear from her. I mean, that's what we're wishing you, really, to support you in the best way possible.
Great. Thank you, Perrine. And unfortunately, we're limited in terms of time that we have for this session. But
Too much
and
talking.
of course, sorry, Emma?
Too much talking, I said.
Very
a lot of
important
advice.
And of course, IELTS is more than just IELTS reading test that we mentioned today. So, Emma and Perrine, maybe if you give just one more tip for IELTS in general, what would you say?
One tip for IELTS in general, I would say vocabulary. In one word, vocabulary. I've said it before, but not only having a relatively advanced level and wide range of vocabulary, I would also say be aware of how to use it and what do you think is the best way to learn how to use vocabulary correctly and accurately.
I would say to be organized. So it's very, like when you know that you're going to take the exam in 5 months, in 6 months, there's like, oh, I'll have plenty of time to get prepared for the exam. And then you just like, the deadline is growing closer and closer, and then you don't get enough time to practice. I would say try and fit in as much practice as you can before you take the exam. It's better to do something regularly than very intensively at the end, because then you would feel that it will come very naturally when you're taking when you're really sitting and taking the exam. So try and fit in as much practice as you can very regularly. Maybe it's going to take just 15 minutes of reading. Well, that's better than nothing, and just cram 1 hour reading at the end of the week. So try and do things regularly, get a plan, get organized, and I think that you will feel less stressed when you do the exam at the end.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you, Perrine. Yeah, and thank you, Emma. Yes, reading is definitely one of the best ways to improve and increase vocabulary in English. Great. So we hope that you found this information and these tips really helpful. And of course, we hope that whenever you decide to take your IELTS exam, that it would be a very positive experience for you and you will get great results. And if you think that you need support and you need time with one of our trainers, either virtually or face-to-face, then you can always visit our website, londonschool.com, where you can find all of the information. You can also contact us after the event on clients@londonschool.com. And we hope that we would be able to help you get this test score that you desire.
Yes, fingers crossed for you.
Yes,
you can do it.
And we hope to see you next week and the week after, because we run these live streams on different English topics every week. So next week we will have another live stream, this time on pronunciation in English. Which is a very important thing, I guess, for IELTS speaking as well. Is this right, Emma?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So do join us for that live stream too. We hope that you have a great rest of the day wherever you are, whether that's morning, afternoon, or evening. And we're looking forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you again. See you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.